All right, so far on this channel, I've laid out some of the, basically, at this point, I've just laid out a handful of the basics, a handful of kind of just base level things, concepts that you should kind of, basically, this is the lens. I've described the lens through which the rest of these videos should be viewed. Things revolving around, human instinct, the overall goal of like what you're optimizing for when you're trying to make a game more successful, and all that kind of stuff. So now it's time to start actually building upon those things with more objective, more specific strategies. I know I've been seeing in the comments, people are like, this seems not super objective. Like, could you explain this in more detail? Yes, we are getting there. We are getting there. But had to lay some groundwork, and now we're going to start getting into the more specific, slightly more objective. It's all a little bit subjective. It all takes a little bit of time to figure out what these different things mean in a gaming context. But we're getting to the more detailed stuff now. So, in this video, I'm going to go over basically the foundation of your game. Foundation of your game should be built on appeasing human instincts, right? The base level things that people just find appealing, right? There are things that people find appealing, that people find amusing, that people find engaging, because it's hardwired into how we think and act based on the survival of ourselves and the survival of our species. So I made a whole video on that topic, which I'll have linked below, called What Actually is Entertainment. That's a good prerequisite. Check that one out. And then, let's see here. And then the other thing worth mentioning is that this is also kind of building off of the other video that I did recently called What Actually Makes a Successful Game. I'll have them both linked. Ultimately, the goal is to make a game that gets as many views as possible, or design a game in such a way that it gets as many views as possible, it gets as much attention as possible, and it converts that as attention at as high a rate as possible. Okay. The perfection example would be a game that everybody in the world knows about and that everybody wants to play. That's impossible. That's never going to happen. But that's the scale. Okay. So the goal is to see like what can you optimize in order to get as close to that as possible. Yeah, definitely watch those previous videos. Everything else that I'm going to be talking about on this channel is building on top of each other video. So yeah, we'll just hop in. Like I mentioned, humans have basic primal instincts that largely go underutilized in day-to-day modern life, and so those primal itches still exist and are most easily appeased by entertainment. And so the way that you make an entertaining game is by tapping into those underutilized instincts. So what makes an instinct highly applicable and useful and increases the conversion rates that you're going to see from utilizing that specific instinct is that it is an instinct that is not easily or safely attainable in real life, or not easily attainable through existing media technology. As an example, like I've got a bunch of instincts here that revolve around like sort of like crafting mechanics, crafting and technological advancement and construction and things like that. But there's already a lot of games in the survival crafting genre. Those instincts are great, but they're already well utilized by other games in the space, so it's very, very difficult to compete with them. Other instincts like a drive to conquer and hunt, things like that. Those are good instincts because they're not safely attainable in real life. Like if you want to go and be in hand-to-hand combat with a bear, the only way that you're going to safely do that is in a video game or by watching a movie. Okay, you're not going to do that very well in real life, so that makes it a valid instinct to try to play off of. In order to make a super popular, broadly appealing game, it needs to have base level concepts, base level drives, and things that are just fundamentally appealing, right? And there's nothing more fundamentally appealing than instinct. Can't really go much more fundamental than instincts as far as I can tell. So by weaving this sort of instinctual thread throughout every mechanic of your game, you have something that is just on a fundamental level. It is fundamentally appealing. Now, again, you have to execute on it. You have to make it in a good way. It has to be not buggy. It has to perform well. It has to be available in the language that people want to play it in. Again, this is, another topic that I talked about. Concept versus execution in the games industry. Concept and execution are both very important. But this gives you a solid foundation on which to build the rest of your concept. And we'll talk about more of that in future videos. All right, so real quick here, as another additional note on this, all of these different kind of layers of strategy that we're going to be building on throughout this channel as I work on these videos, again, they all contribute to either the amount of attention that you're getting or your conversion rate. And I've got kind of general percentages as to how I think each one of these strategies lines up. Like, how much does this strategy contribute to how much attention you will get, and how much does a strategy contribute to your conversion rates? This whole topic of a base level of instinct, I believe, is probably like around like 65%. It's slightly weighted towards conversion rates. But I also believe it is very significant in helping you get more attention, because people are, let's say people are on social media, or they're trying to think of a funny game to tell their friends about. They're going to be more likely to share or engage in content that does have instinctually appealing aspects. But I think it is slightly more weighted towards conversion rates overall. And I think there are other things that are much better for increasing the amount of attention that, again, we'll get. But this one, it's got sort of a little bit of influence over both. So now I'm going to get into a bunch of examples. I'm going to pull up my instinct tree chart, and we're just going to go through examples of a handful of existing popular games, and then I'll go through and I'll show you what the instincts would look like on my own games for some additional context. This section, I'm just going to talk over these, because I think the best way to understand kind of what these sort of instincts look like and get a good just a good explanation of like what this actually means is simply to give a bunch of examples, and then you'll see kind of where I'm coming from here. First one that I am going to show you is the instinct tree for single player Minecraft. That is what we're looking at right here. Let me get if you haven't seen before, again, in previous videos, the ones that I linked, I kind of gave a basic overview of the instinct tree. There are two key categories. You've got self-preservation instincts and species preservation instincts. This is like all of your social instincts, right? This is teamwork. This is collaboration. This is leader and follower dynamic. This is government. This is moral unity, things like that. And then up here is more of that self-preservation stuff revolving around keeping yourself alive. Anything that will help you stay alive. Being able to hunt, being faster than predators, being construction, creation of tools, research and discovery, agriculture and farming. There's a bunch of stuff. So in single-player Minecraft, you're mostly going to be seeing utilization of self-preservation instincts. You've got exploration, literally just walking around, seeing new things, seeing new locations that you haven't seen before. New locations lead to new resources. New resources can be used in new, unique ways to help survive. We've got enhancement of physical power. This is being stronger, being able to, enhancement of physical power leads to, things like being able to hunt more effectively, being able to catch food, foraging, collecting items, just collecting items in games, packing out your inventory. It's good to have items just strewn all over the place. And in Minecraft, you can forage literally like anything. Not everything is useful, but you can get items out of everything, so it's very useful. Also, maybe this is stupid obvious, but I marked in green the ones that Minecraft is utilizing. Threat neutralization. Seeing an enemy, seeing something that is a threat to your well-being, and neutralizing it, okay? This could be tripping a tripwire trap, or it could be killing an enemy, okay? Conquest. Seeing something of value. Oftentimes, it could be something owned by someone else. I think of like, in this example, like going and raiding villages. Raiding villages in Minecraft. It's conquest. Or in the context of like, if you're doing like multiplayer Minecraft, you're playing on a server or something, if you were to go and raid your buddy's house, boom, conquest. There's something appealing about stealing stuff. It's because I think about it. Think about a time when you were playing Minecraft and you stole shit from your friend and you're like, hey, I think I got away with it. Like, it's kind of fun. It's kind of fun. There's something appealing about that. We've got a lot of the Order from Chaos stuff up here. This is where a lot of the crafting and building mechanics come in. So Order from Chaos, we take a chaotic world that's empty. There's enemies, there's trees and rocks and resources all over the place, and we can harvest them, we can forage them, and then we can technologically advance them, right? We can craft them into new things that are also useful to us. We can use those things to create more tools, which allows us to discover and explore and find new ways of creating new things, right? This is kind of like a positive feedback loop here, where we research more, we create more, we research more, we create more. And it allows us to construct things, right? To construct shelter, to construct traps, to construct farms, to construct things that are conducive to our survival, right? Creation of shelter, creation of art. I don't exactly know what creation of art would mean. I think it's largely, that's something that I don't entirely understand is, I don't understand what makes something aesthetically pleasing. I don't understand why like certain colors look good, or why certain arrangements of things look good and why other things look bad. I don't know how that fits into all of this, but I don't know. There's something here. In any case, so Minecraft essentially fully utilizes, in a very intelligent way, all of our self-preservation instincts. And if we're talking about multiplayer Minecraft, playing on servers and playing with your friends, it would also utilize just about every social instinct. And this is why, and we can get into this more in the future, Minecraft is the best-selling game of all time, I believe. Either that or GTA 5. It's one of the best-selling games of all time. And it uses, I have not found a single game that uses the strategies that I'm going to be outlining on this channel. I have not found a single game that uses them better. And maybe I'll talk about it more in the future. But for that reason, there will not be another game bigger than Minecraft for a very long time. Maybe GTA 6, because it's been hyped up for the past 10 years. But it's going to be a while before we see something bigger than Minecraft. Again, we'll get into more of that over time. But that is an example of how Minecraft utilizes instincts. All right, so let's go to another one. Let's do Among Us. Among Us. Old news? Not really. Among Us is great. But I also wrote this strategy like 2 years ago. So I was using game examples that were a little bit older. In any case, Among Us, and I believe this is marked for both the imposter and the crewmate roles. So I've got some that are like sort of partially marked, like hunting right here, where if you are an imposter, then yes, you're hunting, but not if you're a crewmate. So, okay, there are some self-preservation instincts. Enhancement of physical power, largely through threat neutralization. If you are, you're playing with your friends, there's somebody that you see is acting a bit sus, and then you say, oh, hey, we need to call an emergency meeting and get this person out of the game because they are a potential threat. That's appealing, right? You get rid of them, they're gone, threat neutralized. Hopefully it was actually a threat, and then AO, crewmates win. But where Among Us really shines is in its utilization of social instincts. With it being multiplayer, with it being played with larger groups of people, larger than like your average, 4-player co-op, you've got safety in numbers. If you are sticking with your group, you've got people around you, you're safer, right? If a imposter comes along, he can't mess with you as easily because somebody's going to be there to witness. So there's the way that the gameplay is set up, it's conducive to sticking with your friends. Shared threat identification, kind of like I mentioned before. You see somebody that's acting sus, you vote them out, you win the game, hopefully. Tribalism. This kind of comes into the idea of you have in games that have large enough player counts, you can start being divided into different groups. And if you've got a game with like 4 players, you're not necessarily going to be taking advantage of this. But if you've got 10, 15, 20 player lobbies, you might see a group of 7 people over here that have one set of beliefs, a group of 8 players over here that have another set of beliefs. And what I mean by this is, one group is saying, I think this guy is the imposter. This guy over here, we need to get rid of him because I saw him do this, this, and this. But then the other group of people is kind of at odds with them because they're like, well, no, that person was with me all game. I can vouch for them. I think that you guys are all imposters because you're trying to vote out this person who we think is innocent. So it plays off of these interesting social dynamics that are very, very not necessarily super uncommon. People take on tribalistic, sort of behaviors in social groups pretty commonly in real life, but seeing it in the context of a game is pretty unique. Leader and follower dynamic. If you've got one person that's kind of calling the shots, one person that's a little bit louder, that's a little bit more assertive, that can lead the group and direct them towards voting for specific people or leading them towards using specific strategies to try and win, then that would be utilization of the leader-follower dynamic. Naturally, people want to either take orders or they want to give orders, right? It's kind of two classifications of people there. And so a game like Among Us allows for people to take on one of those roles. Social power, kind of similar to this last one with the leader-follower dynamic. I mean, if there's somebody that has more credibility for some reason, then they could maybe get, I don't know, then maybe they'd have more say in who's being voted out, or things like that. Obviously, collaboration, you're working together towards a common goal. You're all contributing. That would be collaboration. Order from chaos, social order from chaos. It's largely going to be coming more from politics, from collaboration. Again, those are things that typically aren't going to occur unless you have larger player counts, which Among Us does. A 4-player co-op, you're not going to get quite as much of that. But as group sizes increase, you need to find social order, and that can be appealing to find, like, it's kind of debatable as to whether or not Among Us would implement anything remotely like political, and I don't mean like, oh, Trump versus Biden. Like, no, that's not what I'm talking about. It's more so that sort of use of social power. It's I would say fairly similar to the leader-follower dynamic, but it seems like there might be some other kind of specific things revolving around like how that power is used. That one, again, as we're getting to like the far reaches of the chart, this is where I'm getting a little bit more iffy on stuff, where it's like I don't fully understand how some of these would work. The politics one is one of these. But court and judgment, this is another one that is definitely, in use. I mean, the emergency meeting is very literally, like, that's about as close as it possibly gets. Again, partially marked, because if you are I don't really know why I partially marked this. This really should be fully marked. Because even if you are the imposter, you're still taking part in that court, in that judgment, but you just simply are the one that's being judged or trying to avoid being judged. So again, yeah. So I think that would be a summary of Among Us. So let's take a look at Fortnite squads. Fortnite squads is an interesting one. Or just really Fortnite multiplayer. There's going to be duos, trios, whatever. Fortnite has done a pretty good job of, especially for a battle royale game, of utilizing a lot of self-preservation instincts as well as some social instincts. On the self-preservation side, we've got the enhancement of physical power through foraging. There's items all over the place. You look for stuff, you pick up bullets, you collect stuff, and you increase your power via foraging. Threat neutralization, obviously, especially through shared threat identification, because you've got your team, you're safer together, generally, unless one of you uses sweat. Then, okay, go ahead and go kill the whole lobby for us, make it safer. Shared threat identification, right? Taking out those enemy characters, enemy players. That sort of that conquest. You hop in a car with your boys and it's like, hey, they're shooting over those hills. Let's go drive into battle, steal all their stuff, kill them, get the goods, right? Obviously, lots of order from chaos. You've got this chaotic scenario when the game starts. Everybody's dropping into this island and everybody needs to kill each other. Only one person comes out. That is the ultimate order, right? Order is achieved once one person wins. That's the completion. And that is done via technological advancement, right? You're getting new weapons over time. You're finding better and better weapons, again, via foraging. Or there are some mechanics that have kind of come and gone in Fortnite. There have been seasons where, there's like upgrade stations where you can improve your weapons, stuff like that. Creation of tools. I don't know so much about this one. I'm wondering if I filled out this chart before. I play Fortnite a decent amount now. I didn't used to play Fortnite, and I'm not sure if I had actually really played Fortnite much when I made this chart. Creation of tools isn't really utilized much in Fortnite. Research and discovery a little bit, kind of via exploration and finding new strategies. I think, as well as sort of in a meta way, in like coming up with new gameplay strategies. If you were to say like, oh, I really like using this loadout. I like these guns and I use them at these distances and this is how I do it and this is the loot that I try and look for. But maybe there's sort of a meta sense of research in like watching YouTube videos from other Fortnite pros or something, and you advance your strategy. It's like, oh, they're using these guns and maybe I could use those guns too because blah, 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 right? So there could be a meta sense of research and discovery. Creation of shelter. That one more so in like OG Fortnite. These days in Fortnite, the building mechanics, if you're familiar with Fortnite, the building mechanics are, you're not exactly building a shelter in the way that you would in Minecraft. The building mechanics are very odd, the way that they're used these days. But in OG Fortnite, you could build yourself a little shelter and it would be kind of cool. That's kind of the self-preservation side. We talked a little bit about species preservation side, a little bit of tribalism, maybe. Again, it's the group sizes are small enough that you're not necessarily experiencing any tribalism within your group, but you could perhaps see some in the way that, it's like, again, more so in the conquest, where you're going out and you're defeating the other tribes. You're going out and you're, you know, targeting your enemies. Collaboration, obviously. Leader-follower dynamic. Again, depending on who you're playing with, maybe you've got one person in the group that is kind of leading the group and calling the shots. That's why I've got this partially marked. It's like a lot of people play the game casually, so that's not necessarily something that's always there, and it's certainly not something that's necessary in order to play the game, but it can be utilized in some senses. Okay, so those are all the examples of other games. I'm going to give some examples now of my own games, starting with my least, well, one of my least, basically my least successful commercial game, which was My Beautiful Paper Smile. That game did not do super well, and I'll just kind of show you how it lined up on the instinct tree here. Also, this is a slightly different chart. Is this different in any really significant way? Yeah, it's very slightly different. I think mostly just in the placement of where agriculture and farming is placed in Conquest. This is a more updated one. We'll just stick with this. Okay, so My Beautiful Paper Smile, it's a hand-drawn, story-based game where it's a horror game, and you're a kid who tries to escape from this evil facility and overthrow the government, basically. Those are the cliff notes. You can take a look at the Steam page or whatever and get a better idea for what it is. But it does not implement basically any species preservation. There are a couple points where there are NPC characters that do help you, so you could get a sense of safety in numbers, but that's about it. It doesn't get far enough that you could consider there to be like any significant collaboration or shared threat identification, because maybe a tiny bit of that. Like there are times where like you're working with an NPC character and they're like, oh, we gotta defeat the king. We gotta go and do this stuff. So you've kind of got some of that, but it's very loose with it being a single player game. On the self-preservation side, there also isn't much. The only sense of order from chaos is the story, the narrative. You know, it's a narrative-based game. In the beginning, you're told, hey, you need to escape from the facility because the facility is bad and you need to escape. So that's the chaotic scenario that you're trying to bring order to. But there's no construction, very little technological advancement. There's a couple points throughout the game where like you get a new item. I think like about every like hour of gameplay you like unlock kind of like a new tool that you use for like that chapter of the game. But again, it's very loosely used. I wouldn't go as far as to say that there's creation of tools or really much research and discovery. There's no creation of art. There's no creation of shelter. There's no agriculture and farming. There's no speed. There's really no hunting. There's very few enemy characters. Foraging, maybe a tiny bit. There are very few items that you can even interact with in the game. It's largely, again, it's very story heavy. There's lots of monologue and talking, and there's not really that much going on that's interesting. Threat neutralization, there's like boss fights at the end of each chapter. And, you know, naturally, those are the most engaging parts of the game. Those are the parts that people found the most interesting. But it's, you know, 5 minutes out of every hour of gameplay. You know, there's a boss fight every once in a while, and that's about it. Destruction, not really. You're not destroying really much of anything. And that's about it. So the game utilizes partially safety in numbers. It utilizes exploration a bit. I would even say it maybe implements conquest in the way that the story plays out, because you go and your goal becomes to overthrow the evil king. So there is some sense of that, perhaps. A little bit of self-preservation and enhancement of physical power. Some threat neutralization, but again, even these are very loose. So you can see it utilizes some instincts, but it's not utilizing them super well. That game it's grossed about $100,000. It didn't do, it did better than most indie games, but I don't consider it a big success. It wasn't super profitable for me. It took a lot of time to develop, and it just wasn't really doing much here. So, next example, we will pull. Let's do Choo-Choo Charles. I'll show you how Choo-Choo Charles would line up on this. Okay, Species preservation. Not really much going on here. There's a tutorial guy, Eugene, in the beginning of the game that helps you, but he's only there for like 5 minutes. So I really wouldn't consider there to be any real sense of safety in numbers. There's a bunch of NPCs around the island. Maybe you'd get a slight sense of safety when you're around them. But it's a single player game. You're not really going to see much utilization of this side of things. On the self-preservation side, though, it's a little bit better. So we obviously, self-preservation, we definitely have enhancement of physical power. So we've got an upgradable train. One of those upgrades is, of course, speed. We can make our train faster. Being fast is just appealing. If you're fast, then you can outrun prey and catch. You can catch up to prey and outrun predators more easily. Hunting, absolutely hunting. You're in this constant. I mean, in Choo-Choo Charles, it's more so that Charles is hunting you. So it's a little different, but so hunting might be kind of partial, right? I mean, ultimately you're playing the game to upgrade your train, make it more powerful, so that at the end you can do the boss fight and actually defeat him. So that one might be kind of partial. Foraging, absolutely. One thing that I did with Choo-Choo Charles is I put scraps everywhere. There are scraps all over the place. By just walking around the map, there's items to pick up. Okay, that alone. Just it makes things more engaging because you're like, here's the thing. Oh, there's something over there. You find chests that you can open up. There are collectibles all over the place. There's these paint cans, and they're all placed in obvious locations so that everybody gets that feeling of, oh, I found something. Oh, I found something cool. So foraging is definitely used. Threat neutralization, definitely. There are actual enemies in the game. You've got the cultists, the humanoid enemies that you encounter somewhat regularly, and you can kill them with your train. But also, obviously, the big one is Charles, right? The whole goal of the game is defeat Charles, neutralize the threat, get rid of Charles. Destruction really is not utilized. Conquest, I think, well, I guess we'll go back to here. Exploration, yes, definitely. You're exploring a large map. It's open world. You have kind of free reign over which missions you do and in what order, generally, excluding a handful of required ones. And I think there's definitely a sense of conquest. You're actively, everything that you do is working towards defeating Charles, right? Taking back the island, setting the townspeople free. So I think there is a sense of that as well. Order from Chaos. We are also utilizing these instincts. Some of them. Specifically in technological advancement. In Choo-Choo Charles, there are, again, like I mentioned, there's all of the train upgrades, so you can upgrade how much damage your guns do, how fast your train is, and how good your armor is, which is also backed up by visual changes, at least with the armor. The armor and the speed. The better your armor level is, the more, basically the style of the train changes, is all I'm trying to say. So as well as that, we've also got, there's multiple guns. I think there's four different guns. There's one that you start out with by default, and then you unlock the other three as you go and help NPCs and do missions, and they give you new, better, more advanced equipment, right? Creation of tools, not really. You're not really creating anything unless you were to consider like advancing your train to be crazy, but not really. It doesn't really work. Research and discovery, I think, could be partially considered here. As you're doing more missions, you're finding the new weapons, you're gaining new stuff to upgrade. Again, it kind of plays into just the whole upgrading, advancing gameplay loop. So now it's not quite the same as like, let's say like a crafting system, but there is something going on there that I think is helping it. We're not farming, we're not creating art, we're not creating shelter, we're not creating tools, we're not destroying anything, and we're not doing anything down here. So that's where Choo-Choo Charles would line up. You can see, obviously, this game has way better utilization of these survival instincts, and of course did way better than My Beautiful Paper Smile. Okay, and then last we're going to go through Cuffbust, which is the game that I'm currently working on, and we'll take a look at the instincts that this one is utilizing. So Cuffbust is the first game that I started working on that I actually had this chart for, and that I was actually using this strategy for. For Choo-Choo Charles, I didn't understand all the instinct stuff nearly as well as I do now. I had a general sense of it. I kind of knew that there were some things that were just inherently interesting, foraging and upgrading, and I knew that these things were good mechanics that people enjoyed in other games, so I added them to Choo-Choo Charles. But I didn't fully understand why. So Cuffbust is the first one where I actually had this chart and was able to say, okay, I'm going to try to utilize a significant number of these things and make the most of it. On the self-preservation side, we have enhancement of physical power, right? We've got foraging. There are more items in Cuffbust than in any other game I've made, right? And there are more ways to get those items, right? You can destroy stuff. The environments are partially destructible, so you can find items hidden in all kinds of different things. There's threat neutralization, whether that be the guards, whether that be players that are causing you issues. That's basically it. It's either the enemy characters or enemy players. Speed, not maybe a little bit. Not really though. I was thinking maybe in the sense that, like, you could try and be, like, the first person out of the prison. You're trying to get out of the prison faster than other players. But there's not really anything that's actually, like, making you faster. So I wouldn't really consider that. Hunting, yes, I would say so. Whether that be specifically looking for guards to kill, because guards drop items. Hey, foraging, right? Foraging and conquest. Or if that is hunting down other players, if you've, depending on, because like Cuffbust is a very open game. There's a lot of ways that you can play it. You could play it in such a way that you're just running around abusing people, just running around and messing them up for the fun of it, because you can do that. Friendly fire is on all the time, so people have to be prepared to get hunted. And, maybe you beat them up and you demand that they give you payment for you to, like, unlock their handcuffs or something. You could tie them up and stuff like that. So definitely hunting. Exploration, yes, absolutely. There's a bunch of different escape routes. There's a bunch of different rooms, different sections of the prison. And by exploring, by investigating different areas, you can find new ways to escape. Conquest, again, like I was mentioning, going on basically raids to kill other players makes the conquest very engaging. Order from chaos. Okay, the game starts out in a chaotic scenario. You're in the prison, all the cell doors have opened, and now all the prisoners are just on the run. They're going and they're trying to get out. There's no construction. There's no construction mechanics. Technological advancement would be kind of loose. It would be kind of loose. You could maybe consider, like, the aspects where, you're finding new escape routes. Again, sort of a meta technological advancement of, like, coming up with new strategies to escape. Or possibly, the actual in-game stuff where it's like, okay, you're finding new items, you're using those items to get into new areas, and in those new areas you can get other better items. So there could be some consideration for technological advancement. But research and discovery, I would say that's that fits. Creation of tools, you're not really creating tools, because again, there's no actual crafting system. On the self-preservation side, Cuffbust has a lot of utilization, but it also has very, very good utilization of social instincts, safety, species preservation, safety in numbers. Obviously, if you're not with a group, you could get jumped so easily. So you want to have a group, you want to get with your friends and make sure that you're safe, because there's other players and enemies that you want to try and avoid. Shared threat identification, absolutely. Collaboration, absolutely. Tribalism, absolutely. The lobby sizes are large enough that it allows for different distinct groups with different goals, right? And that's going to automatically create more conflict. Leader-follower dynamic, again, because the group sizes are large enough, you could have people that are kind of leading the charge, so to speak, and being kind of the core person that's strategizing and calling the shots. Social power, again, if you've got a team that's got a bunch of weapons, they've got powerful stuff. They managed to find guns and stun guns. They've got all the best melee weapons. It's going to be pretty difficult to say no to them when they come for your kneecaps and want to take all of your coins and keys and stuff so that they can escape. Moral unity and law, it's one of these things where, again, if you're playing with, let's say you're playing with a group that you play with regularly, which I would assume is how most people would play Cuffbust, right? They're not probably going to play in public lobbies very much. They'll probably mostly be playing with a small group of friends. And you'll kind of come to certain understandings with each other when you say, like, okay, bro, if you keep beating me up, I am going to handcuff you and I'm going to leave you sitting here in this cell and you will be screwed. Don't do it again, right? Which is going to lead to, of course, court and judgment. Like, let's say you've got a group that's trying to escape and there's one player that's just being a real dick and he keeps beating people up. Everybody else can turn on him and say, hey, this guy is causing problems. We need to expel him, beat him up, handcuff him, leave him, something like that. Trade and economics. I would definitely consider this one. In Cuffbust, depending on what your strategy is for escaping, you're going to need different items to escape, right? Maybe one team they're trying to get out through a specific area that requires a specific key. And there's some other players over here and they're trying to escape through a different way that requires a different item, right? Maybe they need bombs to blow up a wall. This team has the bombs that they need. This team has the key that they need. So there's potential for people to come to an agreement to say, hey, do you have anything that I need? And they say, yes, we do. And people can make fair trades. There's also opportunity for theft in that scenario. Let's say a group says, hey, let's make a trade. One person drops their item. The other person doesn't drop their item, but grabs their stuff and runs away with it, right? And then you get back into court and judgment, moral unity and law, things like that. Politics, maybe, again, like I said before, this is a kind of a weird one. And then order from chaos. That one would mostly just be in like the social structure of the tribe that you're working with. But I think that probably would be checked here as well. Because again, you're going to be kind of electing a leader, maybe large enough group sizes that different people are kind of playing different roles, and it becomes an orderly, strategized escape plan. So that's how I would line up Cuffbust. That is a bunch of examples, maybe more than you wanted, but hopefully it's enough that you get a solid idea of what I'm talking about when I'm describing these things. So as a additional quick summary here, the goal isn't necessarily to utilize every single instinct. If you're doing that, then again, kind of like I was saying before, the instincts that are most ripe are the ones that are being underutilized either in people's lives or in other existing media. And if you're trying to do everything, then it's very likely that you're going to be doing something that somebody else has already done very, very well. And so you might be watering down the overall potency of your game. And especially as indie developers, we've got limited budget, we've got limited time, probably limited skill. And so utilizing everything can be very, very, very difficult, time consuming. It's just not necessarily the most optimized strategy. So I think the best thing would be to make use of a handful of unique instincts that aren't being utilized elsewhere very effectively and really, really hone in on those. It's also worth noting that people don't all feel the same instincts at the same at the same levels. Some people are much more engaged by hunting. Some people are much more engaged by, like, order to chaos to order, problem solving type of stuff. Some people are much more engaged by social instincts. And so, you can't necessarily make a game thinking that everybody is going to love it equally, which is why also it's difficult to make a game that's super, super niche. If you have a game that's super, super niche and is only appealing a handful of these instincts, it's only going to appeal to the people who feel those instincts in a significant way. So that's why you want a healthy variation that is also largely unique or being utilized in unique ways. That is the foundation. That is the bedrock of, as far as I can tell, all of the largest, most successful games. So